Okay, everybody, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about my 2 years with the Fujifilm X-H2S. Now, when Fuji released this camera, there was no other flagship camera like it. The specs alone was insane and had me drooling over this camera. Quick review of the specs: 6.2K open gate, ProRes internally, ProRes RAW externally, f-log2, 14-bit readout, 14 stops of dynamic range. Just an amazing camera. This camera is a beast, and I use it for commercial work, weddings, social media work, etc. As of right now, this camera is my workhorse, and I am not looking to replace it. Now, outside of the specs, what I love about this camera is simply the image quality. This camera has one of the best images I'm seeing coming out of any mirrorless camera, especially in this price point. Fujifilm alone gives you such a filmic look that when you convert it to Rec 709, you really don't have to do too much work into making your image look good. The 6.2K is really nice to have, especially since it gives us a full sensor readout. This way we can choose our aspect ratios and how we want to deliver our content. Now, honestly, I really don't repurpose content as much as I should, but like I said, it is nice to have, especially when you're shooting anamorphic lenses or adapters. Now, f-log2 is another profile I love. I pretty much stopped using f-log. This is my go-to profile for everything from weddings, commercials, social media content, etc. With f-log2, you do get that 14 stops of dynamic range. And you can really tell in high contrast situations, like maybe you're capturing the bride from the inside and you're trying to expose for her and somewhat of the outside at the same time. I've done this before during speeches, and I am able to most of the time get a really balanced look. Now, sadly, DaVinci Resolve still do not support f-log2, but me personally, I use the IDT and ODT workflow, and it works out just fine. Someday I hope Blackmagic stop being lazy and actually add support for f-log2. Now let's talk about the real reason why I bought this camera. And not just this camera, but also the XS20, which is what I'm shooting on right now, and the XT5. And that is ProRes RAW and B-RAW externally. As someone who's learning color grading from Sidney Baker Green and Waqas Qazi, ProRes RAW is like a dream to work with. Now let me say this, when it comes to shooting and color grading raw footage, it is not the same as you will handle a log profile. There is definitely a learning curve to it, and it took me months to really feel comfortable shooting raw and actually color grading it as well. Me personally, I don't believe in owning a camera and not using it to its fullest capabilities. Now yes, I know I don't shoot weddings in raw, at least not all of it, but there are times where I would love to use the raw footage that I get from my cameras and actually use it in like certain projects or personal projects. But it is still nice to have because sometimes I want to shoot in the highest quality possible, and I need something more than f-log or f-log2, which is pretty much just a high quality JPEG. ProRes RAW or raw footage in general gives you a flexibility that a log profile just cannot do. I know for the longest time YouTube made you believe that you don't need raw footage, and that is totally a misconception. And it didn't change until the Red Komodo X came out. And now, as you see on YouTube, it's almost everybody's favorite codec. Now, outside of doing ProRes RAW externally, you can actually record ProRes internally within the Fujifilm X-H2S. You have 3 different flavors of it. You have ProRes LQ, ProRes, and ProRes HQ. Now, again, when the project calls for it, I shoot in ProRes HQ, and those file sizes are massive. And that is because it's 2,754 megabits per second, which is a lot of data, which is I love having when I get into DaVinci Resolve because I can really push and pull those colors even on a log profile. And I'd rather have all that data than not having it at all. Now with a 0.5 terabyte CF Express Type B card, I'm usually getting like a half hour of record time while I'm shooting in ProRes HQ. Now with a 1 terabyte CF Express Type B card, I'm usually getting about 45 minutes to 50 minutes depending how I'm shooting. But like I said, those files are massive, and I'd rather have all that quality, all that bitrate, instead of having it at all. Now, while I have done some commercial work with my Fujifilm X-H2S, right now my bread and butter is still weddings. And right now, I'm about to tell you what my custom settings are on my custom dial. Now, the first setting is, of course, 6.2K open gate f-log2. The second setting is actually 4K 60. The third setting is actually 4K 120. Now the fourth setting is 6.2K f-log2 in ProRes HQ. The fifth setting is 6.2K in Eterna. Now next, the fifth setting is the 4.8K you can actually do on your Fujifilm X-H2S if you don't feel like using 6.2K. Then of course my 7th setting and my last setting is the 6.2K ProRes RAW. Now I do think that when Fuji dropped this camera, it was and still is a game changer. I don't know many full frame cameras or barely at all that shoot ProRes internally and has 6.2 open gate, maybe besides the Panasonic X-H2S. But even with that, I'm not 100% sure. This camera isn't made to be sitting at home collecting dust. It is a workhorse camera, and I use this camera in nearly all my productions. I did 1.5 wedding season with this camera, and I don't regret it at all. I love this camera. It is my favorite camera I ever own right now. As I mentioned, outside of weddings, I did do some commercial work, and still have some coming up, and I did some social media work as well. Using this camera was actually the big reason why I bought the Fujifilm X-H2S. I'm now using this as my B camera or my YouTube camera or just a travel camera when I go out, and at times I do rig this camera up as well. But to be honest, I love this camera and I might just grab a second one. This camera is literally a baby X-H2S, and with the ability to shoot ProRes RAW externally and B-RAW externally for $1,300, you'll be crazy not to grab this camera. Now, there are a few cons with the Fujifilm X-H2S I wish Fuji would address, and the first con is not having anamorphic D-squeeze. I feel like if they were to bring this feature to this camera in the firmware update, I feel like a lot more people would switch to it and they'll start treating it more like a cinema-esque camera. The second con I wish they would fix or bring out with their next iteration of the Fujifilm X-H2S is an internal RAW codec. Fuji have the best color science in the industry, maybe besides ARRI. And I feel like if they were to develop their own RAW codec, it'll be game over. Now for my third and last con, I hope that Fujifilm actually add internal NDs to their next iteration of the Fujifilm X-H2S or the Fujifilm X-H3. I feel like at that point they'll be creeping up on cinema camera territory, and that's where a lot of us videographers who are loyal to Fujifilm, that's where we want them to go. Now, I do both videography and photography, but videography is 99% of my business. Photography is just something I enjoy doing. It's my personal passion. And this is something I can do where I can like literally use it to relieve my stress or whatever I'm going through at the time of my life. Now, if I'm going to do a video project, then of course I'm going to grab the Fujifilm X-H2S and the Fujifilm X-H2S. If I'm going to do photos, then I'm going to gravitate towards my Fujifilm X-T5. We can safely say that Fujifilm is starting to make cameras for both videographers and photographers, and I feel like their next step will be to develop their own cinema camera, or at least their own RAW codec. So thank you guys for tuning in. I know it's been like 3-4 months since I made a video, but honestly, 2024 had a shitty start, but I'm still here. So I hope I see you guys in the next video, and before you go, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Have a good day. Peace.